Griggs My Morning Show time right now is 27 minutes before the top of the hour. Now, in the studio, we got a man who's here to help us out. Dressed to the nines. That is a dope suit jacket you're wearing, sir. It is rust-colored.
Thank you,
With the peach tie and the light blue shirt. It's all about colors and layers, man. I'm bad at that. I got to get better. I dress like a cult leader sometimes, I feel like. That's neither here nor there. We got attorney Gerald Griggs in the house, and, this is the season where people get jammed up, man. Let's just say, if you get stopped, right, and you had a couple drinks, but you're not drunk, because, maybe you just had, maybe 2 Long Island iced teas. You're feeling right, but you're not lit. What do you do in that situation?
Well, technically, you are lit if you had 2 Long Island iced teas, but the main thing that you need to understand is that once the police officer approaches the car and they smell alcohol, they've already started their investigation. The only thing that you have to do once you're pulled over is give them your identification. Once they ask you any more questions, you need to ask, am I free to leave? If they say you're not free to leave, at that point, you just need to be quiet, because anything you say after that, they're using as information to arrest you for DUI. My advice in any type of DUI traffic stop is, as soon as the police officer turns on those blue lights, you roll down your window just enough to slide your license out the window, and then you roll it back up. He can ask the questions through the window. At that point, you're voluntarily stopped, so you don't have to give any information to incriminate yourself.
Okay.
Ask the officer, am I free to leave? If he says no, you're going to jail anyway. So you just need to make sure that if you get arrested, you don't get convicted. There's a big difference.
So if they ask you to get out the car, do you have to get out the car?
But first, you need to ask, am I under arrest? If he says no, you are not under arrest, then no, you don't have to get out of the car, because at that point, you're not detained. You're not legally obligated. You're not obstructing. Now, my advice as a citizen would be, yes, to get out of the car and to cut on your recording device so that you have proof of this.
Right.
But legally, no. Until he says, no, you're not free to go, you are not detained under the law.
Gotcha.
So, Attorney Griggs, can you turn on a recording device? Because if a police stop me, I would just be terrified of everything. Whatever they ask me to do, I would do it, because from previous, what you've been seeing on TV and what have you, and what police, some of them do and stuff. If they ask me to get out the car, I ain't gonna say why. I'm just getting out. If you want me to run, turn, flip, I'm doing that, because I don't want to get beat and then you don't find me the next day.
And that is true. And like I said, there's advice under the law, and then there's advice that's practical. The law says that you are not legally detained until he tells you you're not free to go. That's what the Constitution and the Supreme Court has said. As an African American man, when I'm sitting in the car and the blue lights come on, I'm doing pretty much what the officer says.
Yeah.
But I'm also knowing that I'm not going to incriminate myself. So again, they pull you over, roll the window down just enough, slide the identification out, then ask him if you're free to go. If he says you're not free to go, he asks you out of the vehicle. Listen, officer, I'm complying. I'm getting out of the vehicle, but I would like to cut my recording device on. You have the lawful right in most states to record.
Yeah.
I've seen on some social media where people tried to record when they were getting arrested, and the officer would yell at them and tell them to turn it off.
And at that point, you still have that particular video on your phone. You will deal with the complaint process after he does whatever he does, but you need to at least have proof, because a lot of these police officers, they'll sit up and lie in their police report and say, you didn't say this, you didn't do this. But we've seen the videos. I mean, the Laquan McDonald situation. We saw the video, and then we saw the police reports later that said he was doing something completely different.
Right.
So you need to have at least try to get the video.
All right, now
same thing with Sandra Bland. I'm sorry.
Oh, indeed. For those who just joined us, we got attorney Gerald Griggs. He is a DUI and just traffic expert when it comes to law. Now, a lot of times people get jammed up with the breathalyzer.
Yes.
When you get pulled over, they be like, hey, blow on this.
Well,
do you legally have to blow on a breathalyzer if you get stopped?
No, it's a voluntary state-administered test. You don't have to blow. If you blow, you're getting arrested anyway. Why give them more evidence?
You help them build their case.
It's called the implied consent warning, and it's through a majority of the states. They have to give you a warning that say, if you don't blow, your license may be suspended. Well, you can always get your license back after the fact, but if you blow, it's very difficult to beat those tests in court.
Got you. All right, we got Jessica on the line. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
What's your question?
Okay, if you're going, say, 48 and alleged 30, but there's no speed limit sign, and the police pulls you over and tells you, and they say they got you at radar, and you ask to see the radar, but they won't show it to you. What are you supposed to do?
Well, at that point, in most states, they don't have to show you the laser or the radar, but in court, they have to prove that particular allegation and prove that the machine was in good working order. So I would say save that argument for in court and let an attorney make that particular argument, because yes, they have to show that the machine was calibrated. It has to be from a certain distance, and it has to be make sure that it was hitting your car. So it's a valid question to ask for that information. It's just not on the side of the road is where you make that argument.
Okay, now typically, like when people go on like long road trips, like Gary drives like 10 hours every weekend. If you're following the faster car,
yes,
who gets the ticket?
The ticket goes to the one who's bumper.
Who get caught?
Yeah, that too. But whoever's bumper that laser or that radar hits. So I used to make that argument before I was an attorney. Well, the cars in front of me were going the same speed, and I was just following the flow of traffic. That's not the rules. The rules of the road are you have to be within the speed limit guidelines. And most states give you a 10-mile-an-hour leeway because of the radar and laser not being as accurate as it needs to be. But what I would say is, again, you can challenge that machine in court. You can't challenge on the side of the road.
Now, Attorney Griggs, and speaking of what here Craig saying with me traveling, I was traveling recently, and I was pulled over, and the police stopped me and my friend, and they said, "Is anybody in here a felon?" And my friend was a felon, but they didn't, arrest him or anything like that. But is that a question? They ask you now if you're a felon?
Well, technically, it's what's called a consensual encounter. They can ask you a lot of questions. You don't have to answer them. The only thing you have to do is if they ask you for your identification, give them their identification. They ask you all kinds of stuff like, is there drugs in the car? Do you have any contraband? You don't have to answer that. All you have to answer is, this is who I am. Am I free to go?
But they pull up your license and find out they knowing that you were a felon and you didn't answer. I mean, when they throw you in jail?
Not if you don't say anything.
Yeah, I mean, can they legally, say Gary's driving, he gets pulled over for whatever he was doing, but the person in the back seat, I don't know, they got a body on him. Can the person in the back seat get arrested just because they have a warrant and you're pulling over the driver?
Yes.
Yes. And yet the answer is yes. But once you get to the motions standpoint of a criminal hearing, a criminal case, I can file a motion to suppress that arrest because you don't have probable cause for the guy in the back. The guy in the back was just a passenger. He was riding in a car. He wasn't doing anything. But now on the side of the road, we want to make that argument. The police aren't going to listen to that because they're the prosecutor. The judge will listen because they understand what Fourth Amendment law is. So legally, I can't, again, give me your identification and then be quiet.
You can't, I'm sorry, you can't crack the window and just hand them your thing. They get very offended. Ain't no just cracking the window because then they think you got something to hide. So you can try all that nice stuff, but it just depends on the officer and how they feel. Because I've cracked my window before and it was like, oh, why are you cracking your window? Roll your window down. And I was like, oh, I was told all I had to do was crack my window and give you my ID and registration or whatever, and then it becomes something else.
And that's why we have to continue to write complaints because the law is quite clear, Brad. And I understand what you're saying because this happened to me.
Yeah.
But when I get to court and I'm in front of the judge and we're making an argument to suppress the case, the judge is saying, well, why did your client get out the car? And why did your client roll the window down and smell the burning odor of marijuana and all these things? And you're saying, well, Judge, the police officer got in here and said he had to do all these things. And so that's why we need the video. Right. Things change when you have video. And even the officer trying to say, well, cut that off. I'm going to take your cell phone. I'm going to charge you with obstruction. If that's all caught on tape, we got him.
There it is. My brother, we could do this all day. Thank you so much for your time, Attorney Griggs. We got to have you on more, man. If people want to follow you, find out anything about your law firm, where can you go?
I'm on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere, at Attorney Griggs, or you can reach me at therightatourneyrightnow.com.
Therightatourneyrightnow.com.
Yes.
My man. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time.
Yeah.
Attorney Gerald Griggs, thank you so much for the information, brother.
Anytime.
Peace.
It's the Ricky Smiley Morning Show.